Another way that we're going to get to this idea of cross-validation is we're going to look at the same 5 behavioral archetypes every time we do research. These are not personas. They should not be named. They're not, this is Sally who's 42 and has 3 kids and works out on weekends. It's not that kind of rich persona of a person, because those can be distracting. There are all sorts of biases that come along with the name Sally and having 2 kids and all these things. We don't want to introduce those biases. Instead, we're going to use 5 categories that are always the same. We call them the behavioral archetypes, and they're objective. And that is always, never, sometimes, started, and stopped. Always, never, sometimes, started, stopped. There's another hidden benefit to using our behavioral archetypes. Remember when I said we need to be able to cross-validate quantitative insights and qualitative insights? We need to be able to use more than one methodology in order to get at the truth. That can be really difficult to do with personas, because when you say Sally has 2 kids and lives in Middle America and exercises a lot and all of these things, those are not objective definitions. And so when quantitative researchers are trying to use them, they are forced into this sort of subjective game about trying to figure out how the data lines up against those personas. When we use behavioral archetypes, we're talking about a measurable thing, how much someone does the behavior, the frequency with which someone does the behavior. So I could make a definition. I could say always boxers are going to be the people who box at least 3 times a week. The sometimes boxers are going to do between 1 and 3 times a week. And, the never boxers are going to be people who are zeros. Started are going to be people who, over the course of the last 3 months, that behavior has increased. Stopped over the course of that last 3 months, that behavior has decreased. Those are objective definitions that both the quantitative and qualitative researcher can agree on. The qualitative researcher, in your recruit, you can ask a question about their behavior with regard to boxing that will help you bucket them into one of those. And from a quantitative perspective, if you took a data file, as long as you have people's boxing behavior, you can assign them to one of those 5 archetypes and then analyze accordingly. This is really important because it allows you to triangulate in a clear, direct way. Now, one of the things you'll notice with experience is that when you use these 5 behavioral archetypes, you'll learn that each one is going to give you something a little bit different. Often the started and stopped are going to be really key categories. Why? Well, because they've experienced recent change. If you ask them about a time that they've changed their behavior, they can often generate, well, what other kinds of things were happening at the same time that might have been affecting their behavioral patterns, that might have changed how they were relating to this behavior. But that doesn't mean that you should count out always, sometimes, and never. Sometimes is really great because they're experiencing those change on a frequent basis. You can say, hey, when do you do it? When don't you do it? You can start to look at where that variance occurs. And always and never are really good places to understand what early characteristics about a person, what experiences early in life or at some far previous point might have ingrained a habit or made it unlikely that someone did something. So you get something different from each of those categories, and you'll start to feel that out over time. But again, gaining experience helps you because if you use those 5 categories, you can start to notice patterns within and across them as you go between projects. So remember, you always want to use those same categories, always, never, sometimes, started, stopped, so that you're getting to this holistic understanding of the pressures that are affecting a behavior. One of the important characteristics of the 5 archetypes is that they are MECE, mutually exclusive but collectively exhaustive, MECE, right? What do we mean by mutually exclusive? It means, well, you can only be in one of the 5 archetypes at any time. So take your favorite sport. For me, I like to both watch and do boxing. So everybody fits into only one of those categories. You either always box, never box, sometimes box, have started boxing more, or have stopped boxing, right? You can imagine them, I often think of them as a graph, right? There's a line at the bottom that is never, a line at the top that's always, a line in the middle that's sometimes, kind of goes back and forth, and then 2 lines that trend. Going up, started, going down, stopped. It describes all of the shapes of behavior in the world. So mutually exclusive. You can only fit in one of those. You can't simultaneously be doing this and doing this and doing this at the same time. You can only be one of those 5 archetypes. That's that ME, the mutually exclusive. Then there's collectively exhaustive. What that means is everybody in the world fits into one of them. There's nobody in the world who doesn't belong to one of those groups. We don't want to leave anybody out. This is really important. Research, in order for us to do a good job, we need to be inclusive. And one of the ways of being inclusive is making sure that we're getting insights across all of those different kinds of behavior.